Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. You're watching CBC Windsor News. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, we focus on the power outages still plaguing parts of the region following that incredible ice storm last night. A scary moment in South Windsor, that explosion followed by a power outage and emergency vehicles on scene. No one was injured. That scene played out in neighborhoods across Windsor, Essex, and videos posted to social media showing fires and sparks along power lines and bright flashes lighting up the night sky. NWIN calling this the worst storm in 20 years. Hydro One warning customers in the county that it could be a while before power is back. And the CBC's TJ Deer joins us now live in Windsor. TJ, what have people been dealing with today?
Well, Kat, one of the issues people have been dealing with is downed trees and tree branches. You can actually see one right behind me over there. But the main issue people have been dealing with is a lack of power. Now, for some residents, the power went out just as the storm hit Wednesday night. Other residents had a quiet night, but today has been a struggle for them.
Although the storm happened Wednesday night, one Windsor resident only felt the full impact today. The extra weight of ice on a tree in their backyard brought it down earlier today. The tree struck power lines in their backyard, cutting out all the power in their home. It's a scene playing out in neighborhoods across Windsor, Essex. Nearly 30% of NWIN's customers in Windsor lost power at one point overnight, just a few thousand without power in the morning. For one St. Clair College student, the timing could not have been worse.
The power went out around 9 p.m. at night. I live right across here, the road, and I had to study, but for a test, I could not. And yeah, it was tough. I in the morning, I could not charge my phone or could do any homework.
Another student also couldn't study for a test she had today, but she also couldn't take a shower.
I'm actually competing in the talent show tonight at the college, so I'm actually going home to grab some stuff and then I'm going to shower at the school.
NWIN's Vice President of Hydro Operations told CBC News that more than 100 employees were assessing the damage and repairing downed wires all across the city. It wasn't only in Windsor where the storm hit hard. Tens of thousands of people were without power in the county. Part of the town of Essex still does not have electricity. Downed wires took out power lines here as well. Some of the power lines are right next to sidewalks. Businesses and town hall had to close. The mayor says the town is responding as best as they can to the damage. Her community facing an emergency, Mayor Sherry Bondi says the town doesn't have the power or the infrastructure to keep residents warm and safe.
If you can go to another municipality where it's warm, that might be an option. I do know that the municipality of Kingsville has a warming station right now, so that is an option for residents. Unfortunately, we don't have any town facilities right now in the town of Essex that have power. That's how bad it is.
Rising temperatures means that ice on the trees is falling, making sidewalks and roads with tree branches over them potentially unsafe. Bondi has some advice for people who are outside.
Make sure, where you're parking, where you're getting out of your car, there's not branches still falling. You can hear the crackles. Branches are still falling, chunks of ice are still falling, and of course stay away from those down lines.
And just an update on the power situation in the county. A spokesperson for Hydro One told CBC News that some 21,000 customers will be without power heading into the evening. Now, Hydro One also said that they're requesting assistance from other utility companies throughout the province to help restore power. We'll have more updates from Hydro One as they come in. Kat?
Thanks for this, TJ. CBC's TJ Deer live for us tonight. Also joining us live now for the latest on the power situation in Windsor is Jim Brown. He's the Vice President of Hydro Operations with NWIN. Thanks so much for joining us, Jim.
Thank you.
Jim, what is the latest on the power outages here in Windsor?
Well, we've been fighting an uphill battle against the ice on the trees since last evening. We've made a fair amount of progress. All of our main trunk feeders are now operational, but we have been trying to clear the fused branches off those main trunk feeders. So what we have left right now are pockets of customers. Could be a few customers, could be several hundred customers that we're trying to get back on. What we have noticed throughout the day, however, is that while we clear one problem area, another one pops up. Another branch comes down and takes a line out. So we've been working sort of through the full day. We're working into the evening hours tonight, and even we'll have crews on overnight. Currently, we have approximately 1,300 people without power. We hope to get that down by the end of the evening to under 1,000, but we will still have people who won't get their power restored until sometime tomorrow.
And will tomorrow be the latest that some of those small pockets of people will have to wait, or could it be even longer in some cases?
We expect to be able to get the pockets of customers connected back and in power tomorrow. However, there could be, individual customers with outages where there's a problem with their service or even the connection to their houses. And if there's a problem with the connection in their houses, that customer is responsible for getting that connection point repaired and inspected by the Electrical Safety Authority before we're allowed to reconnect them. So depending on how quickly customers move on that, they may be out longer.
Okay. Jim, earlier today, you said that this is the worst ice storm in about 20 years. Can you explain what makes this so bad?
Well, we haven't had an ice storm of this magnitude since beginning of February 2002. And at that time, we had many more people, I think, out of power. At the peak, we were maybe 25,000 people out of power, maybe 25 to 30%. In 2002, we were over 70% of our customers without power, and it lasted longer. So this storm is not quite as bad as the one in 2002. So I'm saying it's probably the second worst storm that we've had to deal with in the last 20 years.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Jim. Really appreciate your time.
Okay, yeah, our thoughts are with all the customers who are out of power right now. We're working as hard as we can to get power restored. So.
For sure. Jim Brown is the Vice President of Hydro Operations with NWIN. Thanks again.
Thank you.
While people in Windsor work to restore power, we're hearing that it could be days before electricity is back on for customers in Detroit. Nearly 25% of DTE Energy customers are without power today. That is about 500,000 people. The utility company says close to 3,000 power lines were downed during the storm, and they're telling customers that 95% of people without power should have it by Sunday. New healthcare deals are starting to fall into place between the provinces and the federal government. Ontario and all of the Atlantic provinces have signed agreements in principle with Ottawa. CBC's Rafi Bouchikanian has the details.
We've actually just confirmed agreements in principle with the 4 Atlantic provinces and Ontario, who've said, yes, we're in for these healthcare deals.
Those thumbs up coming after years of asks from provinces and territories for more money in healthcare. Last week, they agreed to a general deal that would see the federal government pump billions of dollars in new money into the system. Now come the specifics. Ontario is getting $8 billion over the next decade. The Atlantic provinces between $288 million and $1 billion each.
We're going to continue to ask for more. There's no question, but we are grateful for this money. We feel that it will help accelerate and support the work that's already happening through our own provincial investment, which is significant.
The cash infusion is to go toward funding family health services in underserved areas like remote and rural communities, mental health access, and hiring in the healthcare workforce. Ottawa says the deals are tailored to specific needs too, while it expects premiers to provide action plans and targets to their constituents.
Different provinces have different levels of access, for example, to primary care physicians already. Different abilities to deliver mental health care, different data systems or different levels of sophistication in their data.
Today's news is cause for cautious optimism for some advocates.
It's important to recognize that at the end of signing these deals, the work has not yet been done. You know, what really needs to happen is the follow through to make sure that these changes and commitments end up getting manifested within the system. until we see patients start to have a better experience accessing care.
More than half the provinces and territories have not signed their individual deals yet. The Prime Minister says he expects more announcements in the next few days and weeks. Rafi Wujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
New research shows a marked increase in the number of patients admitted to hospitals last year. COVID-19 cases were up in almost every province. And as we hear from CBC's Christine Birak, both adults and children were affected.
The top 10 reasons for hospitalizations in Canada last year may be eye-opening. The data for young children saw the most dramatic changes as the second year of the pandemic hit children under 4 harder than ever before. Data from the Canadian Institute for Health Information, or CIHI, shows hospitalizations for COVID-19 surged by more than 600%, with more than 2,300 kids ending up in hospital beds. COVID-19 ranked 6th, aside from jaundice and preterm births. There were a higher number of kids hospitalized for respiratory infections, asthma, and pneumonia. We asked Jessie Papenburg, a pediatrician at Montreal Children's Hospital, why COVID made the list last year, but not in the first year of the pandemic.
It's really astounding how Omicron affected such a wide swath of the population, especially in kids. Just from the sheer force of numbers of infections, that tip of the iceberg, the most severe cases that do require hospitalization, well, that got pushed up.
The 10 reasons for hospitalizations in Canadians of all ages shows COVID-19 ranked second with over 77,000 hospitalizations, moving up from 7th in 2021. The only thing more Canadians stayed in hospital for was giving birth. Different types of heart disease came in 3rd and 4th, and substance use disorders also made the top 5. Here's what Nicole Loretti from the Canadian Institute of Health Information, or CIHI, hopes Canadians will take away from this list.
We hope the report really raises awareness about, what's happening in hospitals and what are the most common reasons people are going in hospitals, and especially seeing that for all Canadians, COVID-19 was the second most common reason for hospitalization. It's a good reminder for people that the pandemic is still ongoing, and COVID-19 is still having an impact on Canadians.
Without a doubt, COVID-19 hospitalizations have not started out nearly as high this year, but experts insist Canadians should stay vigilant and protect themselves against COVID-19 and other viruses that aren't going away. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
Take a look at the huge crowd checking out some new art on the McDougall Street corridor. This is one of the 3 murals on display, a way to honor the neighborhood's legacy and its impact on Windsor. McDougall Street was a primarily black neighborhood until a redevelopment plan by the city pushed homeowners out. That was in the 1950s. Now the neighborhood will feature these giant murals. This one features Ada Kelly Whitney, the first black woman to teach in an Ontario public school board here in Windsor, and James Dunn, Windsor's first black alderman. Another will honor Windsor's first black police officer. Fred Thomas is also the face of a wall in the area. He's one of Canada's sports legends. Thomas played for the Harlem Globetrotters, Toronto Argos, and Major League Baseball in Cleveland. You can head to our website to learn more about the project. U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has visited the site of the recent Ohio train derailment, and he called for industry and congressional cooperation to improve rail safety.
And the other freight rail companies need to stop fighting us every time we try to do a regulation in order to hold them accountable and their other railroad companies accountable for their safety record.
The derailment triggered an explosion and fire. In addition, more than 450,000 kilograms of vinyl chloride had to be drained and burned, releasing more contaminants. Safety officials today announced a rare investigative hearing. The probe is focused on a system that should have detected an overheated axle and on pressure relief valves in the cars. There have been accusations that Canada's big grocery stores have been using inflation to hide price increases that are padding their profits. Canada's biggest grocer released its latest earnings report today, and overall, profits were down. Loblaw Companies, which include the supermarkets Shoppers Drug Mart and No Frills, is reporting profits of $529 million for the fourth quarter of 2022. Now, that's down nearly 30% from an earlier year. For all of 2022, Loblaw posted a $17 billion profit on $56.5 billion in sales. A live look outside there, a very different scene from what we had last night. We do have some flurries possible tonight. Colette Kennedy will be here after the break. She'll talk us through it. Stay with us. You might need a ringing endorsement to apply for this job, but that isn't stopping thousands of people in Britain from lining up to lend a hand.
That hand stroke needs stretch and pull through.
You know, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, isn't it, really?
Yes, indeed. The call has gone out for bell ringers across the UK, ready to ring in the new king at his coronation ceremony in May. Officials are hoping to have people in every church across the country. And believe it or not, bell ringing really is a thing in Britain, with as many as 40,000 currently doing it. Still, a group that oversees the craft says they're increasingly in short supply. Meanwhile, the cleanup continues across Windsor, Essex following that ice storm. A big danger now is the ice falling from the trees as it starts to melt. You can actually hear the sound of ice falling right there off of some of those trees, and you can see it bouncing off the ground. And the big thing that officials are asking people right now is to avoid trees covered in ice. These are small chunks, but be careful for big ones that might be falling off anything overhead. And as we look at this, we're going to bring in Colette Kennedy, because my oh my, what a storm that was, and things look like they're thawing out, but still things to look out for today.
Yeah, and those limbs still so vulnerable where there's still that buildup. We're going to see a little more melt, but we've also got winds kind of playing into this, and that doesn't really help things. But milder temperatures, we'll get some melting. Just watch out, because with the refreeze, then that can make for some pretty slick areas too. But it'll be somewhat short-lived, and we're going to get to those temperatures going back above freezing like they are right now, like 5 degrees in Windsor. But look at Dayton, Ohio at 19, U.S. Capitol at 21, and then you see this colder air behind, and that's going to try and push into Ontario. It'll nose its way into the southwest, but not necessarily lingering for very long. So just the temperatures now. And by the way, I didn't forecast us into double digits for today. You may have looked at your app yesterday and thought it was going to be in double digits. However, I do admit I put us higher than where we went, which was 6 degrees. I think we could still grab something, but as the winds pick up and as we get into the evening, the temperatures are still going to build east of us, but I doubt they're going to build that much more. So for us, here we sit with these winds from the southwest, but watch what happens. Look at the arrows and the wind direction, because that's really important. They go to the west and then later tomorrow to the northwest, and that's what's filtering that colder air in. That freezing drizzle advisory was lifted earlier this afternoon as there's been improvement in these regions. Boy, Essex County, we need that, but it's extended further north and east. So that's moved on elsewhere in the province. We need a chance to see things kind of improving here. You see the cloud cover, and it doesn't always pick up some of that patchy drizzle, or the fog certainly isn't picked up. And that's what we have in a few areas with some mist in there. Then we go through the night to tomorrow, and flurries are possible, but I see it more so towards Sarnia and London because of the lake effect. And it's more that we'll have variable skies. In fact, I see us getting into some clearing, which will be nice to have the sun out, and then we're going to lose it again Friday night into Saturday, and some flurries will come through at least for the early part of the day, and then we get into some clearing again. So the winds will eventually turn around to the northwest. Wind chill then will drop to minus 15 as the temperature falls to minus 7. So yes, I know we're above freezing. We're getting some of that melting, but then just know that's why I'm saying a refreeze. Tomorrow up to minus 2, that clearing into the afternoon hours, minus 8, keeping in mind the wind chill will make it feel like minus 15. So a cold morning tomorrow morning, and then a cold morning, this is for Saturday morning, but then Saturday, look at that turnaround. By the way, the beginning of next week, another system that's going to come through. With these temperatures, likely more rain than a mix, but we'll keep an eye on it for you.
Hopefully not as bad as what we had last night.
That's for sure, and I don't expect it to be.
Okay, thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, on the eve of the first anniversary of the war in Ukraine, we'll bring you the latest from the UN General Assembly. Stay with us. The Russian invasion of Ukraine marks its first anniversary tomorrow. Today, the UN General Assembly approved a non-binding resolution calling for Russia to end hostilities and withdraw its forces. The vote was 141-7, but more than 30 countries abstained, many because they don't want to risk damaging their relationship with Russia. CBC's Abby Kugadasan reports.
Bakhmut in the Donbass, still in Ukrainian hands. There's been relentless Russian shelling and months of brutal battles, but Western officials believe an even larger Kremlin offensive has already started. Allies have been promising and delivering military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, the West making it very clear it stands firmly with Kyiv.
Russia must immediately, completely, and unconditionally withdraw its forces from the territory of Ukraine.
But some countries in the global south are finding it difficult to denounce Russia.
We shall now begin the voting process.
And they were unable or unwilling to condemn Moscow today. Some countries see this as a conflict between the United States and Russia.
The Cold War was not that long ago. There is a sense that African governments in particular don't want to be stuck in the middle of these two global powers.
She says there is also resentment over the West's hypocrisy.
We saw President Biden in Kyiv very much supporting democracy and the struggle for democracy there. That is not always mirrored in other countries. So the US seems to have a policy of democracy for the West and autocracy for the rest, as long as that meets US interests.
She explains Moscow also engages with some African countries in a way the West does not. Military funding is not linked to demands on strong human rights records. South Africa is conducting joint drills with Russia right now and recently welcomed Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. African nations are also dealing with the global impact of the war, food shortages, high energy prices, and rocketing inflation. Many in the global south are calling for a negotiated peace.
We do have a peace plan right here in front of us. It's called the Charter of the United Nations.
Kyiv says Ukrainians are living the horrors of the invasion every day, but it will not give up any territory and reward the Kremlin to end this war. Abby Kowaldasan, CBC News, London.
And tomorrow night, to mark 1 year since the war in Ukraine first began, there will be a candlelit vigil and rally outside of City Hall. It's called 365 Days of Resistance. And we want to end tonight with the latest on power outages across Windsor, Essex. NWIN is reporting pockets of outages across the city, some now nearing 24 hours without power. But the majority of customers do have electricity. A different story in Chatham, Kent, and Essex County. About 17,000 people remain without power, and that's down from 21,000 when we started the show. Hydro One's saying people will be without power overnight, but unable to say how many. In Chatham, Kent, they've opened a warming center, and any without power who need help can head to the Tilbury Arena. That is it for CBC Windsor News. For more information, go to cbc.ca/Windsor, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and have a great night.